Hello and welcome to Horror Culture Shovel, a show that discusses all of the masterpieces and trash the pieces of genre cinema. I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
And we are back for what is going to be our last ever original versus remake in this format.
Yes. Would you care to explain
I
further?
would. So, as you guys know, we've recently reached 300 episodes. And with 300 comes a time for change. And with that being said, going forward, original versus remake episodes will be released on the last Tuesday of each month as part of our weekly episodes, rather than on the last Friday of each month. This is mostly because we are going to incorporate part of our original versus remake episodes into our weekly episodes. So instead of being a best and worst of the month at the end of these episodes, there will be a best and worst of the week during every episode going forward from now on.
Yeah. So we can maybe talk about them a little more than just, I like that, or I didn't like that, because, if you've listened for long enough, sometimes I struggle to remember what I've watched within the month. So it'd be nice to have these films maybe a little fresher in my memory.
Yeah, no, definitely. And gives us a chance to highlight some of the better stuff that we've watched where at the end of the original versus remakes monthly episodes, it was always a quick honourable mention.
Yeah.
We get a little more time to talk about. And we watch a lot of shit, so there'll always be something for us to talk about during that section. So yes, original versus remake is not dying, it's just evolving.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere necessarily, it's just moving slightly onto a different date. I think also there's only so many shitty horror remakes you can watch. Have we not been through them all?
Sadly not. And that's why it's not dying, because we're not even halfway through. We've got so many to go.
They were for the 2000s.
Well, today we haven't even got a horror film for you.
No.
But
still from the 2000s.
Yeah. It looks like a horror film from the 2000s. Today, we are talking about both versions of Assault on Precinct 13. We're not including Rio Bravo.
No.
Even though technically both are remakes of Rio Bravo, they're not official remakes of Rio Bravo, so we're skipping that for today, and we're just talking about both films with the same name. And starting with our poll results, where 75% of you voted for the original, and 25% of you voted for the remake.
Oh, that's a shame.
It is. Yeah. So
that's a shame.
We'll save it for when we get to it. Let's celebrate the genius that is John Carpenter and his fantastic masterpiece that is Assault on Precinct 13 from 1976. John Carpenter wrote and directed it. The master of horror and suspense behind Halloween, They Live, Escape from New York, Big Trouble in Little China, The Fog, The Thing, so many more.
Escape from LA, Ghosts of Mars.
We don't need to mention those. So following the release of Dark Star, his first feature, John Carpenter was approached by a group of investors who gave him the opportunity to make whatever kind of film he wanted, albeit with a very limited budget. That budget being $150,000. Although Carpenter wanted to make a Western, he knew he wouldn't have the resources to make a period piece. He wrote this film as a highly stylized modern-day Western, essentially remaking Rio Bravo from 1959, which was directed by Carpenter's hero, Howard Hawks. Carpenter acknowledges this debt to Hawks and Rio Bravo by using the pseudonym of John T. Chance for his film editor's credit, which was the name of John Wayne's character in Rio Bravo. Carpenter also said it's the most fun he had making a film. And what a film it is. It's, for its runtime length, it doesn't have a lot of scenes, which was actually intentional on John Carpenter's part. In order to both maximize the very limited budget that had been allocated for production and to preserve editing choices inside the main story's focus. Carpenter wrote every scene to run as long as he could, within the bounds of still making sense, and filmed them to take up even more time on film than they did on page. And it works.
It does. In fairness, yes, it's technically a remake of Rio Bravo, and it's hilarious the fact that he paid tribute to Howard Hawks. Instead of giving King money for the remake rights, he changed the name. Yeah. Howard Hawks watching the film, like, wait, this is my film. And he tries to sue, but no, I swapped the name in the editors. Well,
yes.
Right. I haven't seen Rio Bravo.
No, I haven't, unfortunately.
I think really for any John Carpenter film, there are moments where he's probably taken from Howard Hawks.
Yeah.
Do we blame him? No. I mean,
No.
Brian De Palma and Quentin Tarantino have made a career of it.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, for De Palma, that was Hitchcock.
Yes.
That he so fruitfully stole from.
Yeah. And Tarantino's everyone.
Yeah. Usually, like, cult films.
Yeah.
That no one's ever heard of. And they were, oh my God, how original. And then someone on YouTube does a side-by-side and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And
now I need to watch this Japanese film from 1970 that only 5 people have logged on Letterboxd. Where was I?
At the box office.
At the box office.
I don't know how much it made, but it was a bigger hit in Britain than it was in America. Largely because British audiences understood and enjoyed the film's similarity to American westerns, whereas US audiences were too familiar with the western genre to fully appreciate the film.
Yeah, it's a bit like a western, but I thought it was more akin to Night of the Living Dead.
Yes, and there is
in many ways more of a horror film than a western necessarily.
Yeah, there is actually some trivia coming up in regards to Night of the Living Dead. Initially, the film got very little attention in the USA until a British distributor submitted the film into a British film contest where it won first prize and subsequently earned a lot of critical and public praise. The British success then slowly coursed the film to become more popular back in the USA. And it's thanks to this film that we got Donald Pleasance playing Dr. Loomis in Halloween, because his daughters were big fans of this film.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting that it didn't do well in America because they thought it was a western, or it did well in the UK because they thought of it as a western. If you swapped guns for, alien guns, if they were like alien monsters, you would call this a sci-fi horror.
Yeah.
I don't...
Make no mistake, this film has influenced many horror films. I mean, it's very much a home invasion film, but in a prison.
If they had fangs, it would be a vampire film.
Yeah. I mean, you look at The Purge, the first Purge film that was released. It's pretty much the plot of this film.
Yes.
It's people in a house keeping a prisoner in there that people... Well, a prisoner... but keeping a person in there who's in danger, who a gang of people outside want to attack. So it's, this is a premise that has been done now multiple times since. I don't think any film has quite been able to top it, though, with this premise. I mean, obviously, I haven't seen Rio Bravo, so this might not even be able to top that. But from what I've seen, this is still the film that handles this premise the best.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you agree or not?
No, I agree.
Yeah?
I'm just trying to think of more than just The Purge. Because I'm just sat here thinking, well, yeah, it's better than The Purge.
Yeah. So you've forgot all the other films that have done it then, so definitely instantly makes it better.
There we go. That's true. That is very true. I'm sure there's a very niche letterbox list.
There probably is.
Out there.
Should we talk about our first feature presentation?
Yes.
For the gang called Street Thunder, it is a day of vengeance. It's war in the streets. It's terror in the night. It's the most shattering assault on a police station in history.
They're not afraid to die. Any of them want to rip us apart, no matter what it costs.
Assault on Precinct 13, rated R.
So we get opening credits for Assault on Precinct 13 with a theme that goes off.
It does.
John Carpenter could absolutely have written some classic disco pop anthems with this synth work. I'm surprised he didn't, and I'm surprised in the 70s that we didn't get lyrics over one of his themes.
That's true.
Like, I could absolutely hear somebody doing like a little jingle over the Halloween theme.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't long after this, was it? Big Trouble in Little China, when that had its own theme song with lyrics.
Yeah. I'm thinking what they did. So there's out there. This is very niche. The film Missing, the Costa Gavras film, with Sissy Spacek and Jack Lemmon. They had a theme by Vangelis that very haunting, synthy theme. For a very haunting film.
Yeah.
And then they had Elaine Page do a single where she sang, "I'm missing over it." And I'm surprised they didn't do something like that with some of John Carpenter's. I feel like it would have kind of worked. Like, I definitely feel Donna Summer could have sang over the Assault on Precinct 13 theme, don't you?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I mean, my favourite of his films is Escape from New York. You imagine that with vocals.
Yeah.
I feel like if it did, it would probably be like someone's Walk on Wrestling theme.
Yeah, that's true. Who played the taxi driver in Escape from New York? I feel like he could have done like a Rat Pack version of it. I'm just I'll probably remember by the end of the episode. So
I found out why you recognise and why you appreciate themes from the 70s and 80s more than any other time, because they always have the opening credits with nothing else going on, where it forces you to listen to the theme.
It does help. It does help. I struggle with soundtracks, and that's not.
Hey, don't worry about forgetting the 2005 one. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, but I do struggle sometimes. It really has to be. I don't know. It has to really be memorable for me to even contemplate remembering it. Which seems obvious.
I always purposely try and listen out for it, but I mean, a lot of the times, especially with remakes on this podcast, I'm just disappointed.
But I love films where the soundtrack is part of the film, and it doesn't feel like, oh, we should probably have music here.
Yeah, John Carpenter nails that. John
Carpenter really does nail that. He's so good at because it's his vision, it's his film, it's he's an auteur. He knows exactly what he wants.
Yeah,
and he does compose the music, and so it's perfectly in keeping with his vision as a filmmaker. That's not to say that John Williams isn't fucking fantastic, despite not being a writer-director.
Yeah.
You know, it's. I'm not saying that this is the only way it works, but it works for John Carpenter because of that, and which I love. So, in South Central Los Angeles, a local gang called the Street Thunder steals a cache of assault rifles and pistols. At 3 a.m. on a Saturday in Anderson, a crime-infested ghetto, a team of heavily armed LAPD officers ambush and kill 6 members of the gang. I love a film that gets straight to the point.
Yeah. Now, the gang is where the Night of the Living Dead trivia comes in. So, John Carpenter said the gang were acknowledged by George Romero's zombies in Night of the Living Dead because they're completely dehumanized. They hardly talk and almost seem supernatural in their ongoing resilience, which is such a good touch because it makes sense.
It does make sense. It also means they were probably cheaper to hire.
Yeah.
Because you have to pay people more when they talk on screen.
It's true.
But I feel it adds to the horror.
Yeah.
So, like, there is more of maybe a supernatural element to them. You question where they've come from.
Yeah.
Are they zombies? You know, who aren't they? They don't really have a background. And that's something from A Night of the Living Dead that was so scary. You didn't know where they were coming from. They looked like humans, but you weren't quite sure. So therefore you weren't quite sure how to deal with them.
Yeah. Having a sense of mystery surrounding them just makes the film more intense, and it's why the Michael Myers not being Laurie Strode's brother storyline works best for me.
Yeah.
You know, John Carpenter works best when he puts people that have no reason to go after people against people, and because that's the scariest kind of thing that could happen.
Because Laurie Strode was a victim of circumstance.
Yeah. This is a lot of parallels of Halloween.
Absolutely. Because the people stuck in the police station in Assault on Precinct 13 are, you know, victims of circumstance. They haven't done anything directly to offend any of these people.
Yeah.
They just the chosen targets. And that's something that we all fear, and we fear particularly within these rough areas, these places that feel lawless, that have been left by the wayside.
I think if you watched this in 1976, you definitely have that sense of, fuck, this guy needs to make a horror film.
Yeah.
Let's go and make a great horror film. And then 2 years later, he made what is, in my humble opinion, the greatest horror film ever made.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, like I was saying, we all have everyone in their towns. You know, we grew up in Coventry. We live in Manchester. You know, there's always those places where you don't want to go there. You don't want to go there late at night because it's been left.
Yeah. It's
been deserted. And people are, you know, allowed to do whatever they like there. That's what we see. And it's very much, this film is playing on those fears. So later on, the gang's 4 warlords swear a blood oath of revenge against the police and the citizens of Los Angeles. And this is an actual blood oath.
Yeah.
They all cut their arms and bleed into a mixing bowl. I don't know where they got the mixing bowl from, but yeah, into a mixing bowl. Yeah. And this is, for me, again, the supernatural element to the film. Lieutenant Ethan Bishop, a newly promoted highway patrol officer, is assigned to take charge of the decommissioned Anderson police precinct during the last few hours before it is permanently closed. So Ethan Bishop is played by a black actor, Austin Stoker.
Yep.
And I think that is also in keeping with Night of the Living Dead. Having a black protagonist within the film. And one thing that I really do appreciate is how the film is honest about race. But it doesn't play on stereotypes or falls into exploitation.
No.
So we have different races on each side. And it's not explicitly sort of made to look like a blaxploitation film.
No, which it could have easily done.
Which it could easily have done.
You know, around this time, if you've got a black hero at the centre of a film, there's a good chance you're watching a blaxploitation film.
Yeah. Or you would have the gang be solely black members.
Yeah.
And the white guys saving the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the prison and that in the jail, the police officers, and that isn't what this film does. Which I think is really a good thing. Yeah. Yeah. For want of a better word. That's very good. That is.
Progressive.
So Captain Collins over the radio to Bishop says, "There are no heroes anymore, Bishop. Just men who follow orders." Because this is Bishop's first task. He wants to be a hero. You know, he's asked, "Do you want to be a hero?" "Yes, I do. I want to save the day." He said, "There are no heroes anymore." Only a skeleton crew or a skeleton staff remains at the jail. So this includes Sergeant Cheney and the station's 2 secretaries, Lee and Julie. I'm assuming Lee may be a reference to Janet Lee.
Maybe.
No, I suppose people were called Lee. Leigh. I knew people called Lee.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
But it probably was.
I didn't think back then, but yeah.
Yeah.
Julie's played by Nancy Loomis with Virginia Woolf hair. You may remember her from Halloween.
Where she was also having a bad day.
She's also having a bad day.
She, John Carpenter puts this woman through hell. Like, she's always having a terrible time.
But she's always having a terrible time or acting. She's got a very dry sense of humour, all her characters. And she's always put through a terrible time before she gets killed. Spoiler alert, she gets killed.
Unless you're the Fog and Halloween 3.
But then she's still
having a terrible
in
day.
The fog. She's still having it. Oh, she doesn't get killed in the fog.
No, she's just really inconvenienced by Janet Lee.
She does seem really inconvenienced.
Halloween
by
3,
everything.
she's just like an inconvenienced mother who's had enough of her kids.
But I think she's inconvenienced by her hair in this one because I don't know what she's trying to do. She's going for some sort of Victorian updo, but it's lost all its life. It's just flopped. Lee makes Bishop a coffee and she says, "Black?" And he responds, "For over 30 years." Bishop also recounts a story of being sent to the station as a child after his father scolds him for swearing in front of his mother. Lee suggests someone got Bishop out of the area just in time, but Bishop corrects her, telling her he got himself out of town when he turned 20.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because he's talking about being brought up in the area. And she, maybe a microaggression, suggests that somebody must have helped him as a black man in that area.
Yeah.
For him to become a police officer and to be on the correct side of the law, that somebody must have helped him.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I helped myself.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be a hero. I've always wanted to be a hero.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, I backchatted in front of my mother when I was younger, but I've always wanted to be a hero, however that looked.
It's also interesting because it actually happened to someone.
Okay.
That story. Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh.
Yeah, that story was taken straight from something that happened to Alfred Hitchcock.
So he got sent to the
prison, yeah.
For the jail. What are we calling this? A jail? Should we call it a jail?
Whatever.
Precinct.
Yeah. Whatever comes out of our mouths when we talk about it.
You know what we're talking about.
It's around this time when we're also introduced to someone who had their house stolen.
House stolen? Oh, that is very true.
Kathy, played by Kim Richards, she's in the car with her dad and they're having a chat about her. He wants her to convince his mum to go live with them. And I only mention this, it's not important at all just yet, but I only mention this because this is when we get some fantastic dialogue where she's like, Mr. Seward says that because he's like needs directions and she spots a police officer and she's like, Mr. Seward says policemen are always there to help whenever you need them. And Dad says, obviously Mrs. Seward has never taken any big steps out of the 6th grade. And it's like, it's a nice little callback to that in Halloween later on.
Oh, yeah.
And then also in the police station, we get the Black for over 30 years dialogue. And then we get, what a night, a police officer in the station. What a night. We've had 3 to 12 every 15 minutes. 12 stolen cars, 3 burglaries, 8 aggravated assaults, and it's not even 8 o'clock. I just thought it was amusing. We've got 3 lots of great dialogue in a row.
A prison bus commanded by a man named Starker arrives seeking medical help for one of 3 men being transported to the state penitentiary. Napoleon Wilson, a convicted murderer, Wells, and Claudel, who is sick. So Napoleon Wilson, he's given me Ricky from Silent Night, Deadly Night 2.
He does look exactly like Eric Freeman.
And I feel like Eric Freeman watched this for inspiration because they both play prisoners who liked that chat. Because Napoleon Wilson, he seems to get under the skin of one of the wardens in particular and manages to trip him with his chains.
Yes.
And so we kind of see Napoleon as a heartless killer with good banter. So the type of anti-hero whose skills might come in handy later on and who very well might survive the film.
Who plays Starker?
Who does play Starker?
Paul Lend himself, Charles Cyphers.
Yes.
And his fierce sideburns. You thought they were good in Halloween. Woo! Those sideburns, you get an extra credit. They are fucking huge in this film.
They are, yes. So across town, the street vendor warlords drive around looking for people to kill. There's an old lady they decide not to shoot. There's an old homeless man they decide not to shoot. Who they end up killing is an ice cream van driver who has a gun in his ice cream van.
Yes.
So I question why somebody would go into this area playing music if he's fearful enough to have a gun. Like, how much is it worth?
Yeah, I mean, he immediately, when he starts seeing their car driving around, he looks concerned. It looks like he either recognises them or he knows because they're driving around looking like that, looking suspicious in that area, he's fucked.
Yeah.
But he still decides to stay there, and thank God he does, because we get a really iconic scene.
Well, we do, because he's visited by little Kathy, whose dad's on a payphone, because they're lost. Got no idea where they're going. And she wants an ice cream. And she goes up and she asks for a vanilla twist.
She does.
And she's given an ice cream, and she goes back. She's going back to her father, who's too busy on the payphone trying to figure out where the fuck he is. She then realizes that she hasn't been given a vanilla twist. She's been given a vanilla ice cream. Whilst she realizes this, the ice cream man has now been shot.
Yeah.
So when she arrives back at the ice cream, and I shouldn't laugh, it's quite shocking, but when she arrives back, she says, I want a vanilla twist, and she gets shot. Like, in the chest.
Yeah.
Like, proper, like, boom.
Like a blood splatter.
Like this little girl.
Yeah. So I wanted a vanilla twist, you beast.
He says, well, why don't you have a vanilla twist? You might calm down a little.
Yeah, the MPAA threatened an X rating if this scene wasn't cut.
Yeah.
And the distributor said to John Carpenter, just give him a version without the scene, and then we'll release it with it in there. And it worked. They actually got away with it.
It's obviously very shocking. I was aware of this way before watching the film.
Yeah.
This is the scene that everybody talks about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we ever, before this, we probably did, but I hadn't seen it. This is what, 2 years removed from The Exorcist?
It is, yeah. So I know what you're going to say, and it actually reminds me of another film. It makes me think of Frankenstein.
That's true.
In the way that this little girl, you know, she went back, she's innocent, she doesn't know what's going to happen, she doesn't know she's in danger, she gets killed by someone who doesn't really have any sort of remorse or feel anything for that whatsoever. No. And then her dad plays a part in the plot going forward after he discovers her dead body.
Yes.
So I kind of feel like there's that little connection there with Frankenstein that I think John Carpenter was maybe going for, but in a very 70s way. And as we know, some of the best films ever made were released in the 70s because they're all groundbreaking and they all tried new things.
Yes.
So little Kim Richards being killed, I think it's a real clever move. Is it done for shock value? Probably. Still shocks me to this very day. I've seen it many times.
Yeah. And I suppose there's a countness to it now because we know who Kim Richards went on to be. For us personally, being fans of The Housewives, we do realise she was a housewife.
You pointed out earlier, she's the actor of Escape from Witch Mountain.
Escape from Witch Mountain, just the year previous, which was, I think, a fairly big Disney film.
Yeah. And I think these were the days where ratings were less strict, specifically in America, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, did fans of Escape from Witch Mountain go to see her in this?
Kim Richards is in a new film. Let's go watch it. Escape from Precinct 13. Well,
from Precinct 13?
But it might have... Yeah.
Crossover. If we watch them back to back, do they join up?
It could have been. But yeah, no, very, very, very shocking scene. And I think an important one within the context of the film, because it goes to show that nothing is off the record now.
Yes,
that's not the phrase I'm looking for.
Yeah, no,
anything is
possible. I mean, it's also the reason that it got some unexpected and unsolicited publicity in the late 90s, thanks to Mel Gibson. He described how he likes films that go too far, and then described this scene in detail, adding he was sitting stunned in an Australian cinema watching a little girl get shot in the chest and die a bloody death. Fans of Gibson, when they existed, who mostly had not heard of the film, began seeking it out, and the good word of mouth turned it into a major success on rental.
Okay. Yeah, okay, would have floated your boat.
Thanks, Mal.
Little Kathy's father, Lawson, pursues and kills the warlord before other gang members chase him into the Anderson precinct.
Leaving his kid's corpse on the side of the road.
He does, yeah. I was expecting him to maybe put little Kathy's body in the back of the car. But no, she's just left there. So in shock, Lawson is unable to communicate to what has happened to him. And he pretty much doesn't communicate for the rest of the film.
No.
Because he's in so much shock.
Yeah.
I just, with little, why do you think that the gang members chose the ice cream van driver and little Kathy to kill rather than the two elderly people.
Well, it makes me question whether they knew the ice cream van driver, because he does give that look.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he looks like he knows who they are.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether he was someone that's maybe was in the gang and got out of it, potentially.
Yeah.
And I think because she showed up and found a dead body, she was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, and I get the idea that Kathy and her father are from quite a well-off background.
Yeah.
You know, they've got a nice car, they're both nicely dressed. So I get the idea of the, you know, we've seen videos online where people go into the wrong area at the wrong time and they live to regret it. Yeah. You know, and I think essentially that's what this is. And it's playing on those fears. Yeah. Whereas the other people that they were looking at shooting are part of that area. Yeah. They are people who are suffering in that area because they've been forgotten. Yeah. And left to sort of rot, really. Yeah. So I think that's interesting.
Oh, definitely.
So as Starker's prisoners are placed in cells, the telephone lines go dead and the station's electricity goes out. While Starker prepares to move the prisoners back onto the bus, the gang opens fire on the precinct using weapons fitted with silencers. In seconds, they kill Cheney, the bus driver, Claudel, Starker, and 2 officers accompanying Starker. Now, when Cheney goes out and he's shot with a silencer, Julie's watching through the window. As he falls, Julie goes, she giggles to herself and says, Cheney fell down. And then he doesn't get back up.
But it's Bishop's reaction when he goes out and he comes back in. He's like, he didn't fall over. He was shot.
He was shot. That did make me giggle. Bishop unchains Wilson from Starker's body and puts Wilson and Wells back into the cells. When the gang members begin a second wave of shooting, Bishop sends Lee to release Wells and Wilson, and the 4 of them repel an attempted invasion. However, Julie is killed during the firefight, while Lee is shot and wounded in one arm.
Put out of her misery.
Put it out, Julie. Yeah. Quite early on as well, actually.
Yeah, I never knew someone getting shot could be such a slay as when Lee gets shot in this film. And she just stands still, stares him straight in the eye, whacks him in the face and kicks him in the balls.
Yes.
Like, girl, fucking gives everything.
I think it's a very creepy image of the gang members silently gathering outside the building. And there's this moment of horror, really, that would, you know, John Carpenter would go on to use again, you know, being able to create these creepy scenes. I love how Lee more than holds her own when the gang members enter. And I have to admit, Julie was maybe a little bit of a wet blanket.
She was a wet blanket.
Now, having watched the remake, it didn't seem that bad. Because if it's something we don't like, it's a wet blanket in a serious situation.
The wettest of wet blankets.
The gang members remove all evidence of the skirmish to avoid attracting outside attention, and Bishop hopes that someone has heard the police weapons firing, but the neighbourhood is too sparsely populated for nearby residents to pinpoint the location of the noise. Wells is chosen to sneak out of the precinct through a sewer line, and after hot-wiring a nearby car, he is killed by a gang member hiding in the back seat. Another great tense moment when you think he's safe and boom. Yeah. Really great. It shows some great filmmaking by John Carpenter. Then we get 2 police officers who are responding to reports of gunfire find the dead body of a telephone repairman hanging from the pole near the police station, and then they call for backup. One of them believes it's raining. Says that's not rain. And then we pan to the dead corpse hanging off the telephone wire. As the gang rallies for an all-out final assault, Wilson, Lee, and Bishop retreat to the station's basement, taking the still catatonic Lawson with them. Lee and Napoleon have a kind of, and I think this is very Howard Hawks, and I think Lee is a very Howard Hawks style character, very strong female who doesn't, who isn't ashamed to flirt, and who, what's the phrase I'm looking for from that film? She doesn't lose any.
She doesn't sacrifice a single ounce of femininity.
Doesn't sacrifice a single ounce of femininity in the process. Because Lee says to Napoleon Wilson, "I'm curious about one thing." And Napoleon says, "Just one?" She says, "No, there are other things, but at the moment, this one interests me the most." He says, What's that?" And she says, "Why didn't you climb through that vent and take off down the sewer in the other direction?" And he says, "Well, there are two things a man should never run from, even if they cost him his life. One is a man who's helpless and can't run with you." And Lee says, "What's the other?" To which Napoleon stares at her as she's so gorgeously lit. And we realise that a beautiful woman is the other thing that you don't run from. And I could imagine John Wayne saying that.
Yeah.
If you would have told me that's a line from Rio Bravo, I would absolutely believe you. I thought it's interesting because I think the film deals with morality in different ways, and how the bad guy can be the good guy.
Yeah.
And someone like, a character like Napoleon Wilson could have done what a criminal would likely do and save his own skin and piss off.
Yeah.
And he doesn't. And we never get, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but we never actually get his backstory.
We don't.
As to, yes, he's murdered people, and it comes up in conversation, but why he murdered them, who those people were, is never brought up.
No.
So it allows us to see him as a hero, but we also have to remember that he probably isn't a decent guy, and we may be slightly invested in this romance, but we realise that it can't carry on because he's not a good guy, and he will, if he survives, be sent to prison for being a murderer. So they protect themselves with a large, durable metal sign as the gang violently storms the building. Bishop shoots a tank full of acetylene gas. I typed it out, but still don't know.
You're asking the wrong person.
Acetylene gas, which explodes and kills all the gang members in the narrow basement hallway. The remainder of the gang flees as police arrive to secure the station. And I think that's also interesting that the gang isn't all killed. Because the numbers seem huge.
Yeah.
Like massive. So the threat is still out there. So venturing down into the basement, the officers discover that Bishop, Lee, Wilson and Lawson are the only survivors. Lawson is strapped onto a stretcher and removed. Another stretcher is offered to Lee, but she declines it and exits unassisted.
Because she's that kind of girl.
She's that girl. She's that girl I thought she was. When an officer attempts to handcuff Wilson, Bishop angrily intervenes before asking Wilson to walk out of the station with him. Bishop says it would be a privilege if you walked outside with me.
He says, "You're pretty fancy, Wilson." He's like, "I have moments." And that's it.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think it's an interesting take on taking people as you see them.
Yeah.
For someone like Bishop, he is unaware of Napoleon's background, and that he doesn't take that into account when he's treating him, the way he treats him, should I say, at the end of the film. As far as Bishop's concerned, here is somebody who has effectively saved his life that evening, and therefore needs to be treated that way. Also knowing that it's not too long till he needs to go back to prison. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's an interesting take on heroism, the anti-hero, judging a book by its cover. I think all of that comes into play in the film, and it not only in terms of criminal and the law, but also in terms of men and women. Yeah. A character like Lee is so integral to a film like this. someone who maybe could have been a wet blanket is a very strong female character.
Yeah.
And that's something that Howard Hawks, from what I've gathered, not having seen all of his films, does quite well.
Yeah.
I think that they actually refer to it as the Hawkian woman. You know, somebody who is, yes, feminine and isn't ashamed to be feminine, but also is able to hold her own.
Yeah.
And if you've listened to any of our podcast episodes, we know that that is a massive thing for us. Yes. A massive tick. 2 thumbs up.
Yeah. It's just a very well thought out, very well put together thriller that is still so intense to this day.
Yeah, yeah. And it never forgets to be intense, never forgets to be thrilling or scary. No. And yeah, just top notch.
And now for a film we can't say the same about. Assault on Precinct 13 from 2005. Directed by Jean-Francois Richet, who did Mesrine Parts 1 and 2, Plane, Inner City, All About Love, One Wild Moment, Bloodfather, The Emperor of Paris, and MA6T Varcracker. Richet spoke about what it was like directing his first American film, and so really I appreciate working with Rogue Pictures for this picture because I did everything I wanted. Oh boy. We had a budget, but if you respected the budget, I was free. Oh dear. After the test screening, we had a very good score. People are stupid. And they gave to me a kind of final cut. So for my first American film, it was a great experience. And I spoke with a French director who worked in Hollywood, and he said to me, they'll kill you. You'll have no final cut. You cannot choose your music. You cannot this, you cannot that. And it's not true. Everything I wanted, they gave to me. Very, very good experience. And I think in this film, especially because it's violent, you kill the girls, you beat a dog, you know. If this film's a little different, it's because we had good artists on this film with a smart studio too. A good studio and good producers that somehow created an awful piece of shit generic film. I love it's a win that you get to kill women and beat a dog.
Yeah. I suppose...
Oh, he's that girl.
Yeah.
Very edgy.
By 2005, it wasn't very edgy. Violence against animals and killing off the women.
First American film.
Yeah. I'm gonna say it, and I'm gonna be perfectly honest. This film is not for me. And I knew within the first 10 minutes, this is not my kind of film.
No, you didn't. You knew within the first 10 seconds.
Yeah, that is true.
The first 10 seconds.
I did.
The first line of dialogue in this film told you weren't going to like it.
It's true, actually. That is true. Give it a little bit of benefit of doubt. But I knew this film wasn't for me. And forgive me, I struggled to be invested in it. I'm going to say this before we go through the film to forgive myself for anything that I miss or don't care about or anything like that. Because this is not the kind of film I would choose to watch. And it's a shame because it has the Assault on Precinct 13 name attached to it. But this is not the kind of film that I would have ever gone out of my way to watch.
Yeah, the original is like Robert Dyer's. It's made for straight and gay people and bisexuals. This film is made for 13-year-old boys who don't know what deodorant is. They've only just learned how to swear and they enjoy playing FIFA and the Scarface PlayStation 2 game. That's who this film is made for specifically. Very specifically, that exact target audience. And unbelievably, it wasn't written by a 13-year-old. It was written by a 36-year-old man by the name of James DeMonaco, who did the Purge films and TV series. I mean... Your first film was literally a rip-off of Assault on Precinct 13. How the fuck did you get this so wrong? Jack...
This was before The Purge, though, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Once Upon a Time in Staten Island, Skinwalkers, The Negotiator, Ryan Caulfield, Year One, Hate, The Kill Point, Staten Island, Crash, the TV series, as in, yes, the spin-off of the Oscar-winning film, Crash. It has a TV series.
Oh.
It's made on a budget of $30 million and it only made $35.2 million at the box office. Good.
Yeah. It's very much in keeping with a lot of the films at the time. The I don't know how I would describe it. Is it the Grand Theft Auto effect?
I feel like it's the Bad Boys 2 effect.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not going to lie to you, because it looks like Bad Boys 2, the cinematography. I feel like every action film released after, or maybe there's one before it that Bad Boys 2 is taken from. I feel like they all had this cinematography, sort of Michael Bay. The sort of Michael Bay cinematography. But it looks fucking naff.
But like the anti-hero, like, you know, and we'll get into it, but how the cop is a bit edgy, and then we're kind of also on the side of the criminal, and we don't really know. You know, like I don't know when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out. I feel like it was before this or whatever, around that time. But that kind of aesthetic, that kind of story to it, like Training Day. You know, it's we're cops, but we're edgy cops, and we're making dirty humor, and you don't know if we're, you know, what side we're on or whatever. That shit.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's one of those films where if this was released these days and it didn't have the title on there that it's got, it would have been one we'd see the trailer for 1,000 times in the cinema, and they were just like, we're never watching that film.
Yeah.
Funny enough, the best example of this over the past year or two was that Plane. From the same director as this, the one with Gerard Butler, where it just looked like generic.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Same director.
Yeah, and it's you know, I'm sure there's lots of people out there who would see a trailer for fucking any John Waters film and like, well, that's trash. Why would anyone watch that? You know, so it's personal preference.
Yeah.
I don't want to offend anyone, but this is not for me. That nobody sat down and wrote this and thought some queer kid in Coventry with an Audrey Hepburn poster is gonna love this shit. So I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
You know, but
doesn't mean we're not gonna trash it.
But this is our podcast, and we're gonna compare it to the original because they did remake it, so we have to compare it. Yeah.
So with that being said, it's time for our second feature presentation.
I assume you know who I am. You're a gangster.
On January 19th,
what the hell is going on?
two enemies will team up to face the most dangerous criminals in the city, the cops.
They can't allow any of us to leave here alive.
We're getting nobody here. That's what's up.
Ethan Hawke, Lawrence Fishburne, assault on Precinct 13.
When this is over, you're going back to jail. I'd like to see you come try.
Rated R. Starts Wednesday, January 19th.
We start with, and I quote this exact dialogue. Listen to me. What are we talking about, really? Getting high? No. We're talking about a journey, man. A subconscious safari. A mental expedition, okay? A mind trek. The planet has been raped, pillaged, and fucked. And the mind is the only uncharted territory. And this shit is the ship. It's the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, and you are fucking Magellan. Yeah, Megan, whatever. Oh, fuck, I spilled some. So what do you say, my Serbian motherfucking friend? Do you want to take a trip, or do you want to sit on your ass? I shit you not. As soon as Ethan Hawke finished this little monologue, we paused the film and we both said no.
Yeah, it did.
Immediately, you are told, and it's the Lost Boys, the Tribe effect, where obviously you've heard our podcast. We don't mind swearing, you know, we love a bit of swearing, and we only use it when it's necessary. There's a certain surge of films in the 2000s where there would be a sequel or a remake of something from the 80s or 70s, and they would just have characters. Fuck this, fuck that, fuck this, fuck that. So, oh my god, that is so unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like, there's hardly any swearing in the original Assault on Precinct 13.
Yeah.
And it's why I compare it to Lost Boys. There's little to no swearing in the original Lost Boys. But the second one, as soon as the film starts, within the first 2.5 minutes, you have more swearing in that time than you had in the entire first film. And it's overcompensating.
Yes.
It's overcompensating for a basic-ass film. Like,
it's cringe.
It's really cringe. Like, this did not need to open up like this. And Ethan Hawke, I believe Ethan Hawke is a fantastic actor who is, I don't know if has he won an Oscar yet?
No.
No, I think he's fully in the line for winning one eventually because he's so good. He's such a good actor. He is fucking awful in this, and immediately he's overacting so much. It is cringe.
Yeah, and it's the edgy cop with a history thing, and it's also one thing I hate, and it's very much like the over swearing, even though we've been maybe accused of swearing a little too much at times.
With a purpose.
But something I really, really blooming hate is the word raped used completely out of context of sexual assault. I hate it. I hate it. It's not necessary. No one talks like that.
No.
Do not talk like that.
Funny.
It's not funny. It's not edgy. It's not anything. It's shit.
Yeah.
Do not use that unless you are describing a sexual assault. Do not use the word rape or raped. I hate it.
Yeah.
And it's just it's immature. And I feel like this is what this film is. It's immature.
It is.
And it's not like there's loads of grossed out humor. It's nothing like that. But it feels, like Gary said, it was written by a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
Who'd played too much Grand Theft Auto and watched Bad Boys 2.
Yeah. Mark Wahlberg was originally going to be in this role.
Of course. Oh, fucking course.
He should have been in this role.
Of course Mark Wahlberg was going to be in this role. Absolutely.
Would have been perfect casting.
Of course he was.
He could have done a shit job in that like he does in everything else.
Oh.
So following a failed sting operation in which...
I actually just imagined him in this role, and it made me angry. I could actually feel my body tense up. I hate that guy so much.
Following a failed sting operation in which 2 fellow undercover officers are killed months prior, and Ethan Hawke killed any chances of this film being good with his overacting line delivery of the embarrassingly bad script. Detroit Police Department Sergeant Jake Ronick begins to regularly abuse alcohol and painkillers whilst clinging to his unambitious assignment as desk sergeant at Precinct 13, which is due to be decommissioned.
So it's during... So what happens is that he's undercover, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's pretending to be a drug dealer. That's why he's doing this over-the-top thing. And he's talking to the scary guy with an Eastern European accent. He's from Eastern Europe. Oh...
I've seen James Bond. I know how this goes.
So his decision to leave a certain way leads to people being killed.
That's when the dog gets beaten up as well.
The guy, so he's Ethan Hawke is pretending to be nervous of this dog, and so this scary Eastern European guy starts punching the dog in the head. Yeah, because
apparently that's really cool.
Apparently that's what we need in this. That's shocking. For a scene of a really throwaway scene that's not really actually got anything to do with the rest of the film. Anyway, for me, you can shoot a kid, but don't be punching a dog.
No.
Don't clip that. Do not clip that.
On New Year's Eve, because this is a New Year's Eve film, which is why we're discussing it, Ronick, Officer Jasper O'Shea, and Secretary Iris Ferry maintain a skeleton shift. Now, Iris, she's putting up Christmas decorations on New Year's Eve.
Very confusing.
Did perfect time to put up Christmas decorations whilst Winter Wonderland is playing. It kind of feels at this point where it's like, we want it to be a Christmas film, but then we changed our mind at the last minute and decided to be a New Year's Eve film.
Do you know what they really wanted?
What?
At the end of the film, her to turn around and say Happy New Year's Eve. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Sarge.
Happy New Year, everybody.
So they just did it around that.
Yeah.
Like, we just really want the end of the film to be someone saying Happy New Year. So now we have to make it a New Year's film.
Yeah.
But we also really want to make it Christmas too.
So we're introduced to her as the camera slowly goes up her sexy body. And her outfit that looks like a small teenager, 13-year-old teenager, has created a woman character on Grand Theft Auto based on what he thinks is supposed to be attractive.
Short skirt,
leather. She got fishnets on.
Fishnets on.
Yeah. She did not pick that outfit out herself. And we get some great dialogue from her. First up, we get this kind of sex is evolutionary instinct, gentlemen. Example, Tiger Stadium. Bleachers empty, except me and a friend. We always get it on whenever and wherever we can. No one saw us, except for the left fielder. Let's just say he enjoyed the show, and I didn't mind the audience. Impulsive sex is in our genes, boys. Don't deny yourself. And then a character in the station's like, I gotta go jump in the snow to cool my shit off.
Yeah, so basically she's just saying, I like to have sex in public.
Yeah.
And I like when people watch, even though they haven't been invited to watch.
And then she says...
Which pretty much means she should get put on a register. But...
She also says, I don't bed criminals, I fuck bad boys. Just like Jesse Nelson. I like bad boys for life.
Jingle bell ball.
And then my other favourite bit of dialogue from her is, come on, Sarge, it's my favourite holiday. I even put on my very special sexy holiday boots. Heads up, boys. Women don't talk like this. What the fuck? Like, I mean, maybe if they're a porn star in a script written by men, like, what are you doing? What is this?
The problem is, I want to stan a woman who's not afraid of her sexuality, but this so obviously comes across as a guy who's written this.
Yeah.
And this poor actress is trying not to laugh whilst reading the shit out on screen. It's cringe. It's so cringe.
Yeah, seriously, it's not empowering when it's so blatantly written by men.
Yeah,
for the purpose of other men to sexualize these characters for other men. That's all it's there for.
Exactly.
It's not because it's like, oh, look at her, she's sex positive, go girl. It's not that at all. It's, oh, look at this sexy woman talking all sexy. Yeah. And then we get psychiatrist Alexandra Sabian, who arrives to evaluate Ronick's fitness for duty. Of course, she's also really sexy. Well, we don't see till later on how sexy she is. She's a little covered up at first. Got a big reveal. Crime boss Marion Bishop is... and also, when she's in this meeting, I didn't get much down from it, but the whole thing was like, Ethan Hawke, like, oh yeah, you want to fuck me, don't you?
Yeah,
whoa.
Exactly. He says, we both know you can't handle this shit just because you want to fuck me. And he steals his notes from her purse. And she's just, despite being a doctor, throughout the whole film, she's made to seem incompetent because she wants to shag Ethan Hawke.
Yeah.
Incompetent because she's a beautiful woman who wants to wear a nice dress for New Year's. Or she's an absolute wet blanket. It's so poor. You think the other woman's poorly written. Yeah. This one's just as bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, like, if he spoke like that immediately, he should be put on a list, like, at work.
Yeah, but it's so unprofessional.
It's sexual harassment.
I'm a police officer, but I'm cool because I talk to women like this. Yeah. Because I'm so sexy that women can't help but be attracted to me, and it's ruining their careers.
Yeah.
And, spoiler alert, kills them.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Just a reminder, this is directed by the man who thought it was really cool that he gets to, in his words, kill off chicks.
Yes, true.
Crime boss Marion Bishop is arrested after killing an undercover policeman and is set to be transferred to prison with 3 other criminals.
Did you see where he murdered this guy?
In church.
Whilst they were singing Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
Check out the acoustics on that.
And he's there like, oh, and the Lord looked down on me, and the Lord this, and oh, shut the fuck up. We've all seen.
I just don't get it. I don't.
So again,
so cliched.
This is so cliched.
Yeah,
it's 3 criminals he's arrested with: Anna, played by Aisha Hines; Smiley, who constantly refers to himself in the third person, played by Ja Rule; and just in case referring to yourself in the third person wasn't annoying enough, they're also joined by the unbearably annoying Beck, played by John Leguizamo, who is usually fantastic in everything he's in.
Yeah. He plays a drug addict.
Yeah. Who
seems to be really knowledgeable on his rights. And sort of talk. He's that guy that gets drunk and talks politics all the time, even though no one asked. Very highly annoying. Highly annoying.
When a snowstorm shuts down the roads, the prison transport is diverted to Precinct 13, where an unprepared Ronik places the prisoners in cells. And as they're arriving, Iris is like, I want to see what that Bishop is like. I've heard a lot about him. And Ethan Hawke's like, wow, I thought you gave up Bad Boys. It's like, it's not New Year yet, Sarge. Oh my God, stop. Bad Boys, you work in a fucking prison. You see them all the time.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
But that's the joke.
That's
I know.
The
joke.
So
is that she works in this police station and she likes having sex with bad boys. And yeah, because women are like that.
Yeah.
Aren't they?
Oh yeah, let's get a job where I put my life in danger just so I can see some bad boys.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why was I forced to watch John Leguizamo chat shit to Lawrence Fishburne while straining on the shitter? Can I ask why this film decided to have that scene where he's talking absolute crap and go, ugh, and then we cut to the revelation that he's having a shit right in front of Lawrence Fishburne? Why was that necessary?
It's made by the same director who said, and I quote, "It's really cool that I got to kill off chicks and beat up dogs." Also, that's it. That's the premise set up. So that's how they get to the police station in this one.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really cool, Mr. Director, and, you know, you're like, oh, I get to kill off chicks. You know what would have been really fucking cool and edgy? Killing off a kid like in the original. Should have done that. Might have made it a little more interesting.
I suppose they didn't want to do the same thing.
And that's where they went wrong.
But the problem is they have gotten a twist in the tale, haven't they? Which kind of makes that difficult.
Yeah.
Because every film has to have a twist in 2005.
Masked gunmen cut off the precinct's communications and electricity after the New Year's countdown and attack the station, killing the deputies before demanding that Bishop be handed over. Ronik kills one of the attackers and finds he is an undercover cop working under Captain Marcus Duval of Precinct 21.
Oh my God. What a revelation.
CSI has a lot to answer for.
Yeah, it's... I think they were too scared to do the cops good, bad guys bad, sort of mixed. So then they had these criminal police be the real bad guys rather than a gang. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think maybe they were scared to offend, or they just wanted to make it a twist. They like every film has to have a twist at a certain point.
Yeah.
I Blame You, Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Every film has to have that revelation, like, oh my God, the calls are coming from inside the house.
Yeah.
It's Precinct 21 and they're the bad guys. So we have to work together, good and bad. You know, it's actually, strangely enough, quite a cliche in wrestling. Can the good guy and the bad guy work together as a tag team against the real bad guys? Can The Rock and Stone Cold work together against Vince McMahon?
Yeah.
And
fans of this,
three
fans
people
of the,
might get that.
Hey, fans of this film will get that reference.
Fuck off. Did you enjoy Dr. Alexandra Sabian in a glittery backless dress not being able to handle the situation?
Yeah.
She believes that she can leave as they don't want anything from her. She opens the door and someone shoots at her and she flies back. She's like, oh no, no, I can't be a doctor and be bad under... Oh wait, she's a doctor, so she should be bad under pressure.
Yeah.
Gorgeous figure though. Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's the real reveal.
That's the reveal.
Oh my God, she's a doctor and she's got a figure. Wow.
Who knew that?
She looks good in a backless dress and intelligent. Crazy. Better make her a wet blanket. No woman can be too perfect, can they? Ooh.
Bishop explains that Duval and his team are corrupt and were formerly his business partners. They now plan to eliminate him to preserve their secret. The precinct staff and criminals form an uneasy truce with Smiley. With the gang, while Smiley continuously refers to himself in the third person still. And it's getting unbearable at this point. Heavily outnumbered and outgunned, Ronick releases the prisoners and arms them to help defend the precinct. Their combined efforts repel several more attacks, eventually leading to a stalemate. Another officer, Capra...
stale.
Yeah. Another officer, Capra, arrives and is shot at by the corrupt officers, but makes it inside. But Bishop suspects him of being sent by Duval when he discovers an unlocked back entrance.
Excuse me.
And funny enough, that wasn't worked into the dialogue in the film.
No.
What we do get, though, is lots of great dialogue.
Well, can I just pinpoint something? After Reservoir Dogs, what does every action crime film have to have? A standoff with guns.
It's true. It's
and
true.
we get one of those. Because we don't know if they can work together or not.
Uh-huh. So we get some great dialogue. Anna, who is quite a tough girl, dressed quite manly, gender's not a thing to her, and, great character. But even she's not safe from the dodgy script when she says to O'Shea, "You either flirting with me or clocking my game, because you don't trust me. I don't like your beady little eyes all over my goodies, so turn the fuck away."
I don't understand the dialogue.
No.
Because she is wearing quite a loose-fitting outfit. She has a hood up. It's quite baggy, so I don't understand what goodies means in that context.
Yeah.
It's bad writing.
It's really bad writing.
It is bad writing. You can have a female character who doesn't have to allude to sex, either being ogled by someone or wanting to have sex in public, or somebody, having to defend herself against accusations of finding her patient sexually attractive. You can have a woman that doesn't have that.
Yeah.
It's okay, mate. It's okay. You can have a female character who doesn't have to play into sexual fantasies.
It continues because then we get Smiley talking to Sabian, and he's like, "You're manipulative, weak knees, and that sexy copper complexion. You're definitely an Aries, baby." And she's like, "You're pretty good." And he's like, "Smiley thanks you." Shut the fuck up. And then we get that sex icon Iris talking with Lawrence Fishburne, where she's like, "I can't stop thinking about sex. I usually think about sex a lot, but this is crazy." Women do not talk like that. Lawrence Fishburne then, because he's a man and he's really intellectual, he's like, "Sex and death are very closely related. The Greeks called it eros and thanatos, love and death, or sex as a way of nullifying thoughts of dying." Whoa, isn't he intelligent?
But this is the idea of the anti-hero, of him being, yes, he's a crime boss, but he's also very well read.
Yeah.
And he's also very sexy. And this secretary, she loves bad boys. This is the perfect bad boy. And this isn't even a sort of early 2000s sort of thing. You go back to like Godfather and stuff.
Yeah.
The anti-hero crime boss. It is, it's been in films for many, many years. From the outset, the gangster film is always the anti-hero. Really, isn't he?
Yeah. Beck and Smiley, meanwhile, secretly conspire to escape. Simultaneously, the rest of the defenders plan for Anna and Sabian to escape in Capra's SUV. When Beck and Smiley sneak out, they are killed by Duval's men, providing the distraction which allows Anna and Sabian to drive off, but they are ambushed by Duval's right-hand man, Calhane, who kills Anna, having been hiding in the back seat, whilst Duval kills Sabian after she refuses to cooperate. So when Beck gets killed, in this film,
Yeah.
I got the trivia in my notes at this point, but I don't think it is at this point. But either way, he gets killed. In preview screenings, audiences really liked the character. I really don't know who this audience was. And were disappointed to see him killed off. So the director took this as an advantage to shoot a close-up of Beck's body hitting the ground with a bloody bullet wound through his forehead. That'll show him you like the character. Oh, you're going to suffer. Watch this. Fucking weird. What is wrong with this guy?
It's so weird. But it's that Grand Theft Auto sort of sensibility, isn't it? I do find like that edgy. It's, straight.
Yeah.
like heterosexuality. That's all I can think of to describe it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is.
It's that 4chan Family Guy watching heterosexuality.
Yeah, absolutely. The life of the heterosexual is a sad and boring place. When the snowfall subsides, Duval calls in a corrupt SWAT team who lands on the roof of the precinct. The defenders flee through a utilities tunnel underneath the building. Emerging from the tunnel, they find themselves surrounded by Duval's men. The traitor is revealed to be O'Shea and not Capra, which is funny because I could have sworn within the film itself, and I left it out in my notes, but I could have sworn he was revealed to be a traitor earlier
on. No.
No.
They think it's Capra, but it's O'Shea.
Well, as Duval prepares to kill the others, Bishop secretly plants a flashbang grenade on O'Shea, mortally wounding him. And in the confusion, Iris and Capra flee in Duval's SUV. Kahane shoots out the tires, causing the vehicle to crash and knock Capra unconscious, but Iris manages to kill Kahane after a struggle. Duval chases Roenick and Bishop into a nearby forest where they ambush and kill the remaining forces. However, Duval shoots and wounds Bishop before being killed by Roenick, who is himself injured in the process. Following this, an injured Bishop takes Roenick's gun and flees, and Roenick promises to personally arrest him in the future. I'll get you one day. When Iris arrives with police and firemen, Roenick claims that only he and Duval's gang are present, knowing that Bishop can't go too far, but wanting to give him the illusion of liberty. As the authorities secure the area, Roenick and Iris leave the forest as the sun rises and she says, "Happy New Year." Sarge. And then we get generic assault, like what he did there, by KRS-One and Graham Revel. It's a rap song, and I'd like to read you some of my favourite lyrics from it. First up is, "So what does it mean, assault on Precinct 13? You're about to see just what the dirt bring. It's working, that force. I have been searching. Like Lawrence Fishburne when it's time to hurt things. Ethan Hawke, man, he faced all of that. I hold the mic like Jar held that baseball bat." My other favourite lyrics are...
Lyrics that you're about to see. Like, this is the end credits. I've just seen it.
More fitting for the end credits, my other favourite lyrics are, "Wow, what an ending. What a conclusion. They thought they was winning, but they really was losing. He thought he was sinning, but really he was proving. That leadership keeps it moving, steady cruising." Surprisingly not nominated for a Razzie.
No. The film was nominated for Choice Rap Star in a Movie for Ja Rule's performance.
And that's
all I can remember, actually.
That's Assault on Precinct 13, 2005. Ending with a song that's just as badly written as the rest of the film.
Yeah. To me, it's very basic. There's nothing to it. There's no nuance to it. I think the twist sort of negates a lot of what the original was trying to do.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like a faithful remake.
No.
It feels like it's taken the name and the general sort of idea and made it into a random Channel 5 film.
That's kind.
It's the kind of film that I probably would have walked in on my dad watching in the living room And I would say, "Oh, what you watching?" And you were like, "I saw it on Precinct 13." I was like, "Oh, the remake." And you were like, "Oh, he wouldn't know." And then I probably would have walked in on him watching it a few months later. Not Channel 5, ITV2. ITV2. And I'd be like, "What you watching?" And he'd be like, "I saw it on Precinct 13. I'd be like, "You've seen this?" He's like, "Have I?" I'm like, "Yeah, I remember having the conversation." Like, "Oh." Because he wouldn't have remembered a single fucking thing.
No.
And I can assure you, in a year's time, if Gary turns around and says who starred in the Assault on Precinct 13 remake, I would probably say Mark Wahlberg. Because it's forgettable, it's generic, it's one of those films that I actively would not watch.
Yeah.
Because I know that I would feel this way after watching.
Yeah.
There are no surprises because I knew it would be this way.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, let's see who's going to win out of the two films. Starting with cinematography, soundtrack, and kills. In 1976, it feels like John Carpenter's making a grindhouse film. It's got that grainy sort of look to it. Perfect camera angles.
Very 70s.
As always. Yeah, it's so 70s, and it's so atmospheric. It makes so much great use of just one location. Amazing.
And you have scenes at night and scenes in the dark, and I can fucking see. I can see what's happening.
Yeah.
But yet I still understand that it's nighttime and it's dark.
I know.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Modern filmmakers, take fucking note.
Yeah.
I still want to be able to see what's happening.
Mm-hmm. The kills are very bloody and brutal, yet they're not completely over the top. Apart from obviously Kathy's death. But, it gets the job done,
At the end of the day, you only needed Kathy's death to be that way.
Yeah.
You only needed one shock. Because if you overdo it, you become a Serbian film.
Exactly.
If you do too much, then it's sort of poor little Kathy's death doesn't mean anything because it's one of 100.
And the soundtrack, fun fact about it, John Carpenter wrote it in 3 days. He made 3 to 5 separate pieces of music, edited them in accordingly, and it didn't even become available to buy until 2003.
Wow.
And, again, like we've already said, it's one of his best, and it feels so ahead of its time as well. I mean, it's not the first film to use synths, but the way it's used within an action film, it just feels so ahead of its time, and it's just amazing. And it always stands out.
Yeah, and it's also quintessentially John Carpenter. You hear it, and you're like, that's John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Even if you're not massively familiar with all his filmography, you hear it. You only have to watch, his main 2 or 3 films.
Yeah.
You're like, that's John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
2005. Let's hear it for everyone at the back. They've said it 1,000 times and they're about to tell you again. It looks like every fucking film released in the 2000s. Specifically, though, for this one, it looks like every forgettable action film released in the 2000s. We get some really bad, shaky camera work at times, like in EastEnders when something's about to happen and the camera starts shaking. There's nothing exciting about the kills.
The jukebox switched off.
There's nothing exciting about the kills. Someone gets stabbed in the eye with an icicle. That happened.
That's the most interesting one.
And the soundtrack is fucking boring. Nothing happens in the soundtrack. It's so generic.
I don't remember.
It's like you're remaking a film with an iconic soundtrack. Put some effort in.
Yeah. I just wrote dull with a hint of snow.
Yeah.
For cinematography. Yeah. The kills are mostly shooting with a little stabbing and an icicle to the eye and blah blah blah. And the soundtrack, whatever.
I think Rob Zombie's Halloween is one of the worst films ever made. I think it's one of the worst remakes, one of the worst John Carpenter remakes. But at least the soundtrack was at least it was half decent. At least it copied the original in points and then added its own things to it. Like, you look at Suspiria, which I believe to be, the best original remake duo ever. The new score tries something different, but it actually makes the music a prominent part of the film. I really think if you're remaking a film where the soundtrack is a big part of it, you should make some effort, but there's no effort here. And the director was like, oh, I've got to choose my own music. Really? And that's what you chose? awful.
Just go a little left field. Go a little, be synthy. You
Yeah.
know?
Add loads of needle drops.
Make it, yeah, make it a freaking jazz soundtrack.
Yeah.
Do something different.
Yeah.
Like, really, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But props for trying. But it doesn't even seem like they're
not trying.
any of
They're
the
not trying.
film.
Of course, he had a great time making his first American film. It's piss easy.
Yeah. I wonder what his other films are like.
I know. Well, Plane's one of them, so there we go. Yeah, so it all goes to the original, to absolutely no one's surprise.
True.
Next up, we have characters. Ethan Bishop, played by Austin Stoker in 1976, and Jake Ronick, played by Ethan Hawke in 2005. In 1976, it felt like they were doing something with this. It felt progressive. There was something, it's exciting. Like, seeing a film with a black lead that isn't a blaxploitation films where the lead is an action hero. That's great. That is so progressive.
Yeah.
And he's so likable, and it's such a good performance. Like, you actually gave a shit about what happened to this character.
Yeah, and we got a little bit of history as well.
Yeah.
A little bit of characterization. Yeah. We actually cared about him.
Yeah.
But it wasn't this forced anti-hero narrative.
Exactly.
It isn't this, cliched, oh my god, I'm a cop who failed and now I'm trying to get over it.
Yeah.
Sort of narrative, because we've seen that so many times, even before 1976. We've fucking seen it, and that's what we get in the remake.
Yeah, Ethan Hawke is just completely overacting. It's jarring, especially when it's the first thing you see in the film is his overacting.
Yeah,
and we see him sexually harassing his psychiatrist. It's like, come on, how are we supposed to like this guy? We're not a certain audience, you know. It's
like, oh yeah. Like, just imagine people at home going, "Oh yeah, I bet she does want to fuck you. Oh yeah, a real cool guy like you. Yeah, bet she really wants to fuck you." Despite having pages and pages and pages and pages of his trauma and his psychological issues right in front of her, she definitely wants to get in his pants.
So yeah, Austin Stoker's the winner. Napoleon Wilson, played by Darwin Joston in 1976, and Marion Bishop, played by Lawrence Fishburne in 2005. And it's not like Lawrence Fishburne does a bad job.
No.
It's fine. He's Lawrence Fishburne.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually feels like Lawrence Fishburne is the only one that watched the original, because this character is a little more subdued, which works for the quiet and intimidating tough guy character trait.
Yeah.
That is, like you said, very John Wayne. But he's completely outdone by Darwin Joston, who brings way more charisma to the role and actually makes the character feel like a new character despite being seen so many times before. Whereas Lawrence Fishburne is like, we've seen this character so many times before.
We have seen that character many times before, and I'm sure Lawrence Fishburne was maybe at the time fed up of playing those kind of characters, but he doesn't phone it in. I like Lawrence Fishburne a lot. I like his sort of acting style, and I think he definitely has a screen presence, which works to his advantage in the film. I don't think the character's interesting.
No.
And I think that's where it fails.
Yeah.
Where I like in the original where the character is more up for interpretation.
Yeah, because they never say, why he's this big tough guy or what he's done. Whereas in 2005, it's constantly, oh, you ripped someone's spine out, didn't you? Oh, you did this, you did that. It's like the Chuck Norris jokes. It's like, come on.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
So we don't need this. We know he's meant to be a tough guy. It's fine.
Yeah.
So Darren Joston wins. Julie is played by Nancy Loomis in 1976, and Iris Ferry is played by Dre DiMatteo in 2005.
Would you maybe change that?
No, absolutely not. And I'll tell you why, because these are both going to be swapped around because I've realised I've mixed it up. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Julie, played by Nancy Loomis in 1976, and Dr. Alex Sabian, played by Maria Bello in 2005. And I'm keeping that in because I'll just let you know these two characters are interchangeable in 2005.
It's true.
And completely forgettable. Nancy Loomis she's camp, she's having the worst day of her life. She's entertaining to watch. It's not like, you know, she's the wet blanket where you're like, oh God, just kill her off. It's like, no, actually, I'm kind of enjoying watching Nancy Loomis here.
She's a damp blanket.
Yeah.
She is, and she probably could have done a lot more than she did. As a character, she hasn't got a massive amount of screen time, but Nancy Loomis is a queen, and I've loved her in everything that she's been in, and she has that sort of dry delivery that I love so much. That probably is why I'm more akin to her.
Yeah.
I may have been accused of having a dry delivery from time to time.
Excuse me.
Oh, wow.
Dr. Alex Sabian, on the other hand, Dr. Alex Sabian is the wettest of wet blankets.
Oh.
And she feels like a female character written by a straight man in 2005.
I feel like she doesn't deserve the title Doctor.
No.
Because even when she's under threat at one point before her death, she is the cowering woman in the corner.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, please, don't. I don't want to see this.
Yeah.
You know, because what's happened before as well, you know, have that moment where you pluck up the strength and you clock someone over the back of the head, or, you know, or am I just referencing this year's EastEnders Christmas episode? But you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just wanted her to have something more to her. And all I can remember from her is Ethan Hawke being a dick to her. And it's so annoying.
So yeah, Nancy Loomis is the winner. And finally we have Lee, played by Laurie Zimmer in 1976, and Iris Ferry, played by Drea D'Amatio in 2005. I mean, Laurie Zimmer, she is a queen who gets things done. Yeah,
she gives us a sense of sexuality. She gives us a hint. Yeah. There's a little hint of romance there. You know, she's not a sexless character, but also it's not her only character trait. She's a strong-ass woman who will be able to look after herself, who isn't afraid of speaking up to a man. Yeah. In any context, whether bad guy or not, and say, this is how I feel. In the remake, sexuality is all she has.
She talks like she's on Babe Station.
Oh my God, she talks like she's on Babe Station.
Yeah. Again, just to repeat myself, feels like a female character written by a straight man in 2005.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, of course, Laurie Zimmer, you're our winner.
It's like, this is how I want women to talk.
Yeah.
This isn't how I have noticed women talk. This is how I would like women to talk.
Absolutely. Now on to our final few awards. Biggest queen has got to go to Lee in the original.
It's Lee. There's no competition. It's Lee.
Yeah, it takes a true queen to just stand still and give a guy who shot her a staring contest before smacking him and kicking him in the balls. Biggest gasp, I mean, is there any contender? It has to be Kim Richards getting shot in the original.
Poor little Kathy, you know. Yeah, I just don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
She had a house stolen from her. Kyle didn't look after her like a real sister would. It's
true.
And she didn't get a vanilla twist in the end. Gasp.
Best dialogue, I have Black for over 30 years.
I did go with I wanted vanilla twist.
And that's camp, something I'm sure we could both agree on. Nancy Loomis witnessing a cop getting shot and thinking he just fell over in the original.
Like you've been framed.
Yeah.
I didn't think the her shouting "fail army" afterwards was appropriate, but
with that being said, of course, the winner is the 1976 original.
Yes.
Ratings for both. I give the original 10 inconveniences for Nancy Loomis out of 10.
I give the original 9 vanilla twists out of 10.
I give 2005 2 shags in Tiger Stadium out of
10. I just went with 2 poorly written female characters out of 10.
And where you can find both films, the original is bought for choice, because that's the one you need to watch. Thankfully, that's a good thing. Original is on Blu-ray, DVD, video on demand, Amazon Prime, ITVX, Mubi, Shudder, and Plex. whereas the remake is available on DVD, video on demand, and ITVX. But forget I said that, 'cause you don't need to watch it. If you enjoyed the original, I recommend Night of the Living Dead.
If you enjoyed the original, I recommend Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah. And if you enjoyed the remake, I recommend watching VFW, which is very much Assault on Precinct 13, but without the name.
Yeah, I recommend if you enjoyed the remake, then watch Dread, which is a fantastic film.
It is. Yeah. Watch that instead of the remake.
Yeah,
Treat yourself.
actually just watch that instead. Yeah. Maybe that's what we should say from now on when it's a shitty film. Just say, don't watch this.
Yeah.
Watch this.
And if you did watch it and you enjoyed it, then...
That's fine.
Check out your taste in films.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's cool.
And if you have watched it and you didn't enjoy it, and we're sorry to hear you watched it. Now on to our best and worst, our final ever.
Our final
best
ever.
and worst new releases of the month.
And wasn't it a good month?
It was the best way to end this on.
So good.
I mean, going forward, I'm very much an on-air thing. We're recording. I'm just announcing this right now. I mean, we should just have it open, the best and worst going forward weekly, to new or old releases, whatever.
What have we been watching?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But whilst we are on new releases for our best and worst, the best of the month for me is Godzilla -1. The second best Godzilla film for me. Absolutely stunning, phenomenal mixture of human and monster drama. I actually cared about the characters. It's just top tier kaiju.
I agree. Fantastic film. I think its lower budget really helped.
Yeah.
I think it felt more human. It was more akin to a war film, but didn't lose any of the sort of Godzilla that we know and love. Just really, fantastic film. Really close call, but my favourite of the month was May December.
Yeah.
I feel like I've loved every Todd Haynes film. I really get what this film was going for. I really appreciated it. I thought Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore were fantastic. I thought it was weirdly kind of humorous at times, but then really deeply quite effective. I thought it was fantastic. Loved it. I
completely agree. Worst of the month, I'm sure it's the same for both of us. It is Family Switch. Netflix somehow took a film, a body swap film, and McG made it, and they somehow made it not fun. Like, I don't know how that's possible. Like, it's so badly acted, you don't believe that the people are who they've switched with, which is rare for a body swap film. It's just bullshit. It just doesn't work at all. It's just boring, generic shit.
There was no nuance to the acting once the switch had happened.
It's also supposedly a Christmas film, yet the start and the end are the only Christmas scenes.
Yeah, I feel it's one of those films where Christmas is stuck onto it.
Yeah.
To make sure people watch it every year. It's a Netflix film, so you know how they just like to make films and just plonk them there, and then people might watch it in years to come.
Honourable mentions.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And we'll do it on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because if anything, we're very honest. When did we watch Family Switch?
December. It starts December.
Because I've
Did you not log
got
it?
to put it into my life. I'm here like, I swear we watched it and it was awful, but I haven't actually put it on my diary in Letterboxd. So anyone who follows me on Letterboxd,
they think you're lucky enough to have not seen it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, honourable mentions across new and old releases. May December is on mine. I'm sure Godzilla -1 is on yours.
Absolutely.
Also, It's a Wonderful Knife. It's a gay old slasher film, which you should absolutely go and watch.
Yeah, very fun.
The Grinch, 1966. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I'm going to go through these quite fast because, like I said, it was a good month. We've got a lot of them.
Such a good month.
The Royal Tenenbaums, Sleepless in Seattle, Eileen, Femme. I do want to say, please go and watch Femme because it deserves as much support as possible and it's fantastic. It's so intense.
So good.
Wonka was better than expected. Fallen Leaves, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, Give Me Pity. Again, please seek out this film. It needs to be seen.
I loved Give Me Pity, and I was listening to the soundtrack on repeat the next day.
And so does Sweet Sue. You know, 2 films that really haven't been seen by that many people, but they are fantastic. The Red Shoes, The Family Stone, Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Boy and the Heron, and Priscilla.
Yeah, loved The Boy and the Heron, loved Priscilla. Go out and watch them. So many 5-star films. Have you done that thing again?
No, because we recorded at the end of the month.
So we talked about Tish and Saltburn last month.
We did.
Oh, that's good. Well, very
and I remember
good.
because we mentioned Black Narcissus, and that was the last one. Before.
And that's the last time we'll do that now, isn't it? End of an era.
But yes, tell us what you've been watching. We are Horror Cult Trash over on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Horror Cult Trash on Twitter. I'm Delight Gaz92 on Letterboxd, Gazmo205 on Instagram, and GazCruise92 on Twitter.
I'm Chris Barker823 on Instagram and Letterboxd.
And give us a rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, like a follow, and everything else. We also have another Gasp Horror Festival coming up this year. Go to Gasp Horror Fest and see what it's all about. Now, we have an episode coming for you on Sunday, New Year's Eve. Our 20 best horror films of the year.
Oh, no spoilers.
Well, I mean, we've already spoke about one of them. And then Friday next week, we're doing something a little different this January. To start the month, we will be discussing Dump Month films. So we're doing one good that didn't quite get the attention it deserved, and one that deserved to be a Dump Month film. So first up, we'll be discussing Matinee.
Yes.
Joe Dante's Matinee. And then for the other half of the month, we're going back to Japanuary. And that means next month's original versus remake on the last Tuesday of the month is going to be The Grudge original versus remake threesome, all by the same director.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. We haven't spoken about Dump Month before, have we?
Not on the podcast.
The
no.
idea that January is the time
where
studios would dump films that they don't think would do very well.
Yes.
So really excited to look at those films within that context.
Absolutely. And we have many more themes coming up next year, but tune into our next episode where we will tell you what we're doing. We'll be back same time, same place on New Year's Eve.
Bye.